Hello, Josh Castleman here with Roghnu. As we continue our Sage Intacct test drive series, today we're going to talk about Sage Intacct and the Salesforce integration. As we work through the demonstration, I'm going to make a few assumptions for simplification of the demo, and one of them being the lead to account conversion process is fairly straightforward. There may be additional steps required in your business, but we'll assume a fairly straightforward conversion. So the first step, of course, is creating a lead. So we're going to go ahead and save this lead. And there may be multiple steps in the process before a lead is converted, but again, we'll assume fairly straightforward. So we're going to go ahead and convert this lead to an account. We are not going to create an opportunity right away because I want to show you that process, but here we're just simply converting this Consulting Inc. lead to an account. So now we have this Consulting Inc. account. And the point at which an opportunity is created typically drives the interaction between Salesforce and Intacct. And so what we're going to do is, prior to creating the opportunity, in this case, we're going to synchronize this account to Intacct. And in order to do so, you'll see at the menu, there's some options here. One of them is Sync to Intacct. So this basically takes the information collected for the account in Salesforce and replicates it into Intacct. It's now synchronizing, and what I'll do is I'll jump between Salesforce and Intacct to show you the real-time synchronization that occurs. So I've gone to our Intacct environment, and now you'll notice that a customer has been created named Consulting Inc. This customer is now tied to the Salesforce account Consulting Inc. So as we move our way back to Salesforce and begin to work this account and identify an opportunity, we're going to go ahead and create that opportunity. Within the opportunity, you simply give it a name. Identify the stage. So we're very much in the prospecting stage, fairly low probability. Let's assume we're going to close this on 4/6. If you happen to have a multi-entity Intacct environment, which is, it presents tons of opportunities there for slicing and dicing of data, but if you do have multi-entity, we need to define the entity for which that opportunity is going to be created. So now we create the opportunity. Now that the opportunity has been created, we need to add products to the opportunity. Now, a little background. Typically, the master records for accounts, once they're created in Salesforce and synced to Intacct, the master becomes Intacct for the account because of the billing and some of the other related activity from an accounting standpoint. Products are also mastered in Intacct because there is accounting activity associated with those products. But the price list for the products remains in Salesforce. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a product to this particular opportunity, and you can have multiple price books as well. So we're just going to pick the standard price book, and we're going to pick a product that we plan to sell on this opportunity. So we're going to select the product, computer, quantity of 1. Again, we need to define the location for this particular order. And assuming this is just a one-time charge, a single purchase, but if it was related to some sort of subscription, you could simply add the service start date and end date here, and that will carry through under the sales order in Intacct. There, of course, you can have different revenue recognition rules and billing templates if it's billed on a per month, per quarter basis. So we're going to save this product on the opportunity and refresh, and we should see that item pop up in there. So now we've got our computer. You still have the option at this point of making any adjustments to quantity. You can add additional products, pricing, etc. Over here kind of gives you a summary of where we are with the opportunity. So once your opportunity is complete, you can create a sales quote for your customers. To simply do that, again, from the drop-down, create sales quote, and this will synchronize with Intacct, thereby creating a sales quote and then giving you the print format for which to provide to your prospect. Post the sales quote. And we should now see that sales quote on our opportunity. Here we go. So in order to print the sales quote, open the sales quote here, print sales quote. Again, it'll pull the template defined in Intacct for presenting that to your customers. In this case, you can have your logo. You can modify this to kind of reflect the details for your particular business. But from here, you can print it out and mail it, or download a PDF and email it to the customer. Now, once your customer has agreed with the sales quote and everything's a go, we need to actually define and close this opportunity. So what we're going to do is we're going to change it from a prospecting to closed won, and we're going to save that. So this takes it through. This is another one of those assumptions. There may be additional steps that take place, approvals and what have you. We're going to assume that all of that has been cleared. So the opportunity is now closed won. The next step is for you to create a sales order for this opportunity. Again, from the drop-down menu, we'll select Create Sales Order. It opens an Intacct window and creates that sales order. Within the sales order, we simply need to, it should carry over all of the information that we've already captured. We just need to define an anticipated ship date. So we're going to pick that. Now we're posting a sales order in Intacct. So to close the loop on the sales order in Salesforce, we're going to come back to our opportunity and refresh the screen. Now we see our sales order in Salesforce. We also see that that Salesforce has in fact been created in Intacct. So here's the sales order that we just created. Typically, the process for taking that sales order to the sales invoice is a task reserved by accounting or someone in back office. But of course, this is all permission based. So depending on your business rules, this can be adjusted to fit. But again, we're going to assume that this is an accounting role. So once the product or service has been delivered, accounting will convert the sales order, in this case, to a sales invoice. Again, it's basically carrying forward all of the information that was included originally. If this customer had terms on it, it would auto-populate the due date. It doesn't, because I just didn't add it as part of the demo, but we'll go ahead and define the due date. We're going to post the sales invoice, and so now we have the corresponding AR and revenue posted for that particular item. And now to close the loop on the sales invoice sync, once we've posted that in Intacct, it automatically creates the sales invoice in the Salesforce environment. So now the sales reps can see accounting has captured the sales invoice. We know what the invoice date is. We can actually look at some of the detail in the invoice. Total, bill to, ship to address, so on and so forth. And so we can also see the status of payment. So here we see that it's been invoiced and no payments have been made. So let's say a month goes by and this invoice is now past due. Accounting can communicate via the chatter, or it's basically an in-app messaging tool that also works and syncs through Salesforce and Intacct. So from the accounting's perspective, they may be trying to perform collection activities or what have you, and assuming this invoice is past due, they can actually communicate within the record to inquire as to what the status is, or perhaps if the sales rep can follow up. So they would post that comment on the record, and this remains with this particular record in perpetuity. So now what we'll do is we'll jump back over to Salesforce, where the sales rep would be notified that they have a message and give them the opportunity to respond. So in Salesforce, each user can have a user-specific dashboard. In this case, we have a window on the dashboard that shows recent chatter activity. So now I see that accounting has asked about payment for this particular invoice. So I can select this link will bring me specifically to that invoice, so I can gain some information as to what I'd be inquiring about. So I see the comment, and I can say, spoke to AP check is in the mail. If I could type, that would be great. So I'm going to post that comment. So from accounting's view in Intacct, there's a little bubble up here that kind of shows all of the historical activity communications, but there's also a little one there that tells me that there's a new message. So I can either click on that message and it will bring me to this particular invoice where I initiated the question, but now I can also see that the sales rep has responded and says they spoke to AP and the check is in the mail. So that kind of shows the ability to communicate within the applications, and that communication stays with the records. And it also prevents having to go into Outlook and having these communications disconnected. Everything is within the record. So check is in the mail. We received the payment. So now we're going to receive the payment for that item. And we are going to receive that payment for $999. We're going to receive in full, save. So now this invoice has been paid. We can go back to sales invoice, confirm as such. Should be able to see that on that invoice. We'll see the payment status here. Alternatively, you can look in AR and you'll see here also that invoice has been paid. And once that invoice has been paid in Intacct, the sales rep can also see that on this particular customer, the balance is 0. So this also reflects payments that have been made. If it was a partial payment or hadn't been made, it would actually show the balance there. And on the account, the sales rep can also look at some additional information. For example, let's say they wanted to look at the customer aging. In this case, there won't be anything because obviously they're paid, but this would show if they had multiple invoices outstanding. It would actually show the aging of their invoices. So as you can see, the Salesforce and Sage Intacct integration is rather powerful. It allows for in-application communication, bidirectional synchronization of information, keeping the sales team up to date, as to the health of their customers, keeps accounting abreast of what's going on. So this was basically a display of how the order entry integration works, but there's also project integration as well as contracts integration, which obviously is a little more complicated, but this should give you the basis for how the integration and the bulk of the components of the integration. We appreciate you taking the time to review the Salesforce and Sage Intacct integration with us today. As always, if you have any questions, we're here to help, so please feel free to reach out. Thanks and have a great day.